spam. They swear an oath when they take that job to serve their constituents and to do so under state laws and with the Constitution as a guideline. And right now, they're literally promoting an administration that's trying to dissolve our federal government and is playing with our Constitution. They are not doing the job they are obligated to do. And whether you voted for that guy or not, once he swears in on that office, he's working for you. Same as somebody who's mowing your lawn, which means that if they're not doing their job, you need to hold them accountable. If you don't hold them accountable, they're going to get nothing but Republican calls that tell them that they're great. And they're going to think they're great and that everything will be fine. Because Republicans are notorious for calling a lot more than Democrats do to their representatives, like just almost on a casual basis. We usually only call when something's on fire. So what we're trying to do is encourage people who have the ability to do so, and this isn't everyone. These town halls and these showing up to the office are already having the desired effect. We are starting to see people flip positions in state legislatures and on some of these legislation that's trying to push the MAGA agenda down the ballot. And they are freaking out about it, and that means that it's working because they're thin-skinned and they're upset. And I just put it to you this way, y'all. Is there anybody here that's not sitting at home kind of upset and worried and concerned and worried about whether we're going to have a country and another election and whatnot? After a while, we're literally watching an attempt to dissolve our federal government and our services. If there was ever a time to roll up and bully your congressman, I would say it's right about now. And I did say bully, and I meant it. Okay. Now, also, Miss, I can't present, and I was going to share this handout just as a screen share, just to show some of the action items. Is there anything I can do about that?
I would you like me to share your PDF?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, if
Not
you
at
wouldn't
all.
mind, that'd be great. I tried to do it, and I went, oh, it's not going to let me.
Give me just a moment. Let me open it up.
Oh no, Janice, we have to be aggressive and assertive. Absolutely. Because the Republican constituents are. We have a tendency to kind of, as a culture among Democrats, not really want to bug anybody, but we also have another really bad habit as Democrats. And I call it kind of a cop out. We only ever take task with Democrats. And if you think about that, it's probably because we think we can get away with fussing at them. We think they're probably going to listen to us a little bit more. And there's a lot of us that are in states that are unhealthily red. And that's your representative, whether you voted for him or not. That's your guy. You're going to have to go to that guy and take the fire to him. And so, if you want to go ahead and pull that up, Missa, thank you so much.
Is it sharing now?
Uh, it says you're sharing, but I don't see nothing, girl.
I will be right back.
Okay. But you all get this handout. There's basically some bullet points of things that you can do. But one thing that I'm going to talk about right now is regarding a lot of people want to email or use website contact fields or maybe even social media messaging accounts to reach out to your electives. And I'm a real online connected digital remote working person that prefers that every chance I can. And I'm going to strongly advise you not to do that because it takes one staff member to set up one autoresponder and all of your emails are going into the ether where nobody is reading them. Ask me how I know. I've been the person that they made set up the autoresponder. And so, like in my state, for example, we've been having people write to Lindsey Graham and they get the same prefab garbage back from him no matter what they write because nobody ever read that missive. So physical mail works and showing up in person. But the main thing is let's eat up their staff time because their staff, as constituents, need to take your complaints and your concern. They may even push back on it, but they still have to do it. And when you start eating up things that cost them money, time, and resources, like human resources, that's when you start making an impact.
Is it not showing
And
still, Melanie?
no, but it's okay. They'll get the handout. I got it here in the corner if I need it for notes, okay?
Amazing.
It'll be fine. Let me just figure out where the heck I done put that. Give me just 1 second, because I thought you was sharing it, so dumb me, I went and clicked it off. Okay, so to roll up our elected representatives, there's some action items on a to-do list, and we're going to go over a to-don't list real quick at the end of it. Because Isabel is going to have some very important indivisible related information. And the more that we can get connected to our groups and be working as groups with our county parties, with our indivisibles, the stronger our actions are going to be because we're united, and also the safer they're going to be in groups. But some action items to do is to show up, preferably in groups, to these people's offices. Now, not everybody can do that. A lot of us work. A lot of us, like I have two little kids and I work all the time. But I do have an awful lot of retirees that I work with who are activists in this state. And they have a little bit more freedom to do so. So I've been encouraging them to go. Recently, they pulled Congressman Joe Wilson out the back of his office because they found out a team of 10 of my ladies were going to talk to him. And they left a whole bunch of Kamala Harris campaign style post-it notes about all the things they were concerned about. And they wrote the words AWOL Joe out of them on his door. I got a picture floating around here somewhere. It was epic. But that's something that doesn't hurt his office. They can pull all those post-it notes down, but it does make an impact. They had to pull him out the back because he's such a big baby. He didn't want to deal with it. Okay. That says something to me. So preferably in groups. I don't really want to see anybody doing any of this stuff alone. You want to make their staff take your complaints. I mean, actual staff sit down and take notes from you because that costs them human resources in their office. Now you're putting a pinch on them. If you send an email, nothing. You're getting an autoresponder and nobody has to even acknowledge that you said anything. Call their phones. Now, this one might sound a little tricky. Maybe you're not getting through. Keep trying to call till you get somebody. That doesn't mean don't leave messages and eat up the entirety of their voicemail with them.
Right, I think.
Hmm? Janice?
Oh, oh, no,
Wasn't
nothing.
me. I've been muted.
Sorry, I was just making sure you didn't have anything.
Melanie,
Melanie, you
there.
muted yourself.
I thought I was unmuting myself because then I went muted. Mister, what you doing with that mute button, girl?
Hands up.
Okay. Okay, so another thing is most of us have smartphones. I think it's exceptionally important right now, especially when they're just trying to rewrite facts in front of us, like, somehow Ukraine attacked Russia first, crap like that, and stuff we all know better about. It's very important to be able to record things as they happen. So get a little bit more familiar with using your cell phone video and audio recording. It's important that when you have a group of people there, for example, that poor lady that got pulled out that meeting in Coeur d'Alene in Idaho, if we hadn't recorded that, we might not even have known what happened over there. And so I don't anticipate in most of these interactions y'all are going to have any problems, but they may say something real stupid that we might as well just mirror and impact as much as possible. Tag your legislators' social media accounts in social media posts about specific concerns. While they will not necessarily read them, if they get to trending where they start seeing a big impact in their socials because people are going after them because they're getting tagged, they are going to notice that because they have comms people that will then have to write reports, which eats up more of their staff time. Okay. Insist upon town halls and public meetings. If they don't want to have them, get together with your indivisible groups, your county parties, and your everything else who are trying to do work like this, and make sure that you hold empty chair town halls. We're doing that in a couple places here where you encourage people to show up. You invite your senators, you invite your congressmen. When they don't, we jeer at them loudly for not showing up. And we bring other speakers in to talk about why this is important and what the deal is and what we're fighting for. And then we invite them again. Hopefully next time they show up. If not, we have another nice big Dem party. Okay. So roll up to your state house and legislative sessions when they're in session. Even if you don't go in, even if it's just a crowd of you sitting out there socializing, ready to talk to these people when they come out, pay attention to what bills they're trying to pass in your state legislature, because it's very easy to look at the national news, and that's what they're kind of counting on right now, so that your down ballot representatives can start pushing this MAGA agenda in your state as fast as possible while you're distracted with the bread and circuses up here. So another thing that we want to do when we're using any images or making social media posts is to use hashtag roll up, because it's starting to trend with a regular ping and resonance rate of about 1.2 mil just on Facebook, because people are starting to use hashtag roll up when they're talking about their congressman. I sent Missa something that I made at 2 in the morning and it went gangbusters in my state. Went on image flip, and I got one of those Mean Girls meme formats, where they're in a car, like, get in, loser. It was like, get in, loser, we're going to bully our congressman. And it was like, I put South Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee's faces, or state acronyms over the faces. And that thing had 3,000 shares within like 3 hours. Because everybody is very sick of this. So don't think that these are things you're going to end up doing alone. This is getting to be a very big movement throughout the country, and you might make new friends doing this kind of stuff. But another thing that I want to put into this is, please understand that the goal is not to magically change the hearts and minds of people that are voting against your interests. It is literally to make them worried and uncomfortable and concerned about electoral consequences for what they are doing. Because right now they're making us worried and uncomfortable. They're just going to get a bit of it back. But another thing that I would very much like to encourage people to do is to bring musicians and encourage them to play their music at these things. Encourage photographers to come in and take pictures. Do you know people with talents? Let them bring it. And I'll tell you one thing that sounds really crazy, but it's very, very true, is nobody can ignore somebody playing a tuba, nor can they argue with them. And I have absolutely had tuba players follow congressional representatives around going boom, 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 boom. I mean, I'm not even kidding. And it works, because nobody's, like, recently we just had a general protest of what was going on in our state house, especially regarding deportations. Because I don't know if you've seen it, but we've had some South Carolinians really acting up because of Trump. And so we had a mariachi band that really wanted to be part of what we were doing. And we were very scared for them with visibility. And we basically did a circle around them and walked them over downtown Columbia, where you could hear them for miles, but we had a human shield around them the whole time. It was a beautiful event. But moving along, the main thing I don't want anyone to do is do this stuff alone. Do this stuff with people not knowing where you're going. But the alone thing is nowhere near as impactful as if we go in a group, and they're obviously recoiling from it. This is definitely something that's having a tangible, visible impact. And if they're freaking out, then we're doing it right, because they should be worried. And we need to keep that energy going all the way through 2026 and beyond. But I highly encourage you to roll up instead of trying to send an electronic missive or trying to send a postcard or whatever. roll up on them. They are not used to getting pushback. They're used to things being pretty cushy for them, and they're freaking out.
Melanie, there's a question in the chat that I'd like to ask you. So recently, Arizona's Congressional District 2 Representative Eli Crane sent his staffer out to the Show Low Library rather than himself actually showing up in district. So what advice do you offer folks for office hour meetings with staff?
Well, for office hour meetings, regarding what just happened there in Sholo, we just had something recently in Springfield, Nebraska, which is out in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. And they were sending these mobile staff meetings around. And it was very obvious that they were trying to avoid a town hall. And it was very obvious that they were trying to keep people from coming to their offices. So we actually had people bus into Springfield and start protesting and shouting town hall at them. It was not what they expected. Just because they want to make a concession to you that they think works better for them does not mean you have to accept it. You can keep pushing for the offices. If they won't take office hours, then you can still call and you can still organize to demand that they do provide office hours. What do they have to hide is sort of the implication. And maybe this feels like an unnatural thing to do to push on these people, but they're making laws that are going to affect how all of us live, whether certain groups of us are basically getting politicized out of existence. I know that in South Carolina, they're trying to push a total abortion ban right now that would make anybody able to be charged retroactively with homicide, which means that me having 2 life-saving abortions in my life now puts me at risk of being picked up as a murderer at any damn time. Right? So, I don't really, pardon me, y'all, I don't really have too many ifs to give about whether I'm making Lindsey Graham a little uncomfortable today or not. I'm looking at having a 14-year-old daughter that's going to have fewer rights turning 18 than I did. And that is completely unacceptable. And so as far as them being, uncomfortable, I want them to be uncomfortable because they're making people uncomfortable. A lot of times we're very upset and we end up getting upset to the point that we get apathetic, right? Or we think we can only operate, well, we're only going to do these hours here, or he's only going to, no, hell with him. He can do hours that work for the general public. And if he doesn't, you have every right to protest and you have every right to push him to. Do we have any other questions? I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you. There's another question. So Vicky
Oh, hey,
asked,
Gina. This is Gina. You guys, Gina Frank. She is from the Nebraska Democratic Party. She's their outreach director for the state. Say hey to your
Hi,
sister,
everyone.
Nate. Hey, girl.
Gina,
And
I see
I
your
got,
comment. So why don't you speak to that and then I'll ask Vicky's question after.
yeah, Gina, would you like to just say something there?
Yeah, so the Springfield Town Hall it wasn't a town hall. It was billed as joint office hours for both Mike Flood and Don Bacon. And the chickens just sent staffers out to this library that is 45 minutes from Lincoln, 30 minutes from Omaha, and people just showed up. Like there were no buses. Like they would love to be like, oh yeah, the Democrats bust people in to be mad. No, like they just showed up. People showed up hoping it was a town hall,
Showed
and
up
they were
angry.
mad. Um, I will say that I am going to roll up on Mike Flood's office probably today. I am writing him a nice little note.
You
And
want to tell them about the little packet that you're sending them? Because this is
I,
something
I
that
am.
Gina and I are doing in several states now because we're bad.
This is a personal thing. This is not the state party doing this.
Right.
But I have a little pair of balls here. Um, for Mike Flood. Because apparently Elon still has his.
Yep.
Um, and I'm going to go deliver them. I will make a TikTok video when I do it. And I
As
am
you
not
see,
wearing a
they've been
branded suit.
conveniently placed in a sack, right? Because,
I have
clearly we
they,
didn't have a sack or balls. So,
they've been sacked up
mhm.
and they are ready to go in case he needs them. Um, so yeah,
And I
conveniently
wanted
portable.
to share, in addition to what she's doing, that we are literally having a ball sacking party in my retirement town community, like Democratic Party, that we're going to include lots of little notes like, hey, we determined you probably don't have any balls. Maybe Elon took them when he took all of our data. So we've conveniently placed two in a sack for you so you can hopefully find some backbone. And with these, you can go fight for our Constitution. But we're doing it real tongue in cheek, like little asshole Southern women do down here. Um, but anyway, I just wanted to let y'all know that this is the time to get into some good trouble. Listen to people like Isabel from Indivisible and listen to some of your organizing leaders like Gina. You know, we've been doing this stuff long enough to know how to keep everybody from getting in trouble, doing this kind of stuff, and how to make this the most effective and how to unite people in a meaningful way so we're not just all like going too fully chaotic good on thing. But the dude like the balls, Gina. Thank you for sharing the balls because I didn't know if I was going to work that into this conversation or not. But yeah, we've got people in like 4 states doing this right now, so feel free to have your own ball sacking party. Uh, but I'm going to go ahead and close here by saying that whatever you do, try to do things with other people. Numbers are effective, but also, especially after what we saw in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, that's not a reason to not show up. It is a reason to record and make sure you're not showing up places alone.
Thank you.
Because sometimes we need people to see examples of what happens before people get it in their head that, pardon me, shit's that serious. And so I do not want to eat up any more time for Isabel, and I will talk all day if you let me, Isabel. I apologize, but I want to see what you've got to say too. And thank you so much.
There's one more question in the chat for
Okay.
you, Melanie, before you go. Vicky asks that the office hours in Gold Canyon for Eli Crane are being held at a sheriff's office. Is that something that we should be concerned about?
I would make sure that everybody double checks on what the law is on there, but I'm pretty sure you can still record in those areas. And I don't see a problem if you guys aren't being violent and you aren't trying to, like, punch the guy in the nose. The sheriff's office being there by all rights should mean that it's safe for everybody, as long as everybody is, not like physically attacking each other. But because they have the benefit of having the sheriff there and they think everything's going their way, this is a really great time to record people saying stupid stuff. And I do not want to move away from the emphasis on how stupid the stuff they're going to say is and how important it is to capture audio and video recording of that. Because a lot of people have a certain persona they have crafted running for office. And this very delicate persona is what convinced their largest supporters to get behind them. And there's going to be cracks in that facade as they actually have to handle people and get put under pressure. And you can really see who's a good leader real quick when they get in a pressurized situation like that, because somebody will start running their mouth. The gal in Idaho, they started talking to this grown woman and calling her a little girl in the back and pointing their finger at her. There was all this aggressive language that would have predicated some of what was about to happen to her, which I might add, all those people have been fired, lost their business license, and that woman is hopefully running for office again. She had run for House Rep, and I am trying like heck to contact her myself because I feel like she could probably do some amazing, that's my other candidate, probably do some amazing fundraising just based on being on the national news for going up against that guy. So yeah, absolutely. I don't think that that's a reason to not go. I think if anything, you have law enforcement there. Now, can we always trust law enforcement to do the right thing? Absolutely not. That's why we're recording. And I want you guys to go in groups and make sure you have witnesses for things. But that doesn't, the thing is, we can sit here and do nothing and just wait till they come for us in our houses or for our relatives or for our gay uncles or for our transgender nieces or whatever, or we can take it to them. And I'm really more about taking it to them than sitting here wringing my hands going, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't do idle complaining. So, I think that that should be fine, but I don't think that you need to accept whatever it is they hand you. If you know you're being handed a rotten green ham sandwich, then you don't need to eat it. Like, oh yeah, we'll show up in Sholo, but we're never at our offices. Why are you never at your office? If I never showed up to my office, I'd be fired. I mean, this is just a dude with a job. And I'm going to close this real quick by saying never celebrity worship an elected representative, ever. If anything, and I work with these people every day, there's some of these people I love very much that have gotten very close to. But if anything, I come at them with a tiny, tiny prefab modicum of disrespect because I know too many people are blowing smoke up their you know what, trying to keep them on their good side. If anything, you have to be ready to hold an elected representative accountable because that's a lot of power and a lot of attention fed to somebody with a big ego that they needed to run. And they sometimes get a little bit too big for their britches real quick. Bring them back down to earth because for any other job where they work for you, if they weren't doing it, you'd be taking action, and that's all you're doing here. And if they're gonna, act like a child and run around and ignore you, then you're gonna have to treat them like how they're acting. But don't fangirl a politician. They ain't worth it. None of them. I met my favorite person out there in politics is Bernie Sanders. Met him in person. He's exactly the same person you'd think he'd be. You go, why are you late, Bernie? You'd think somebody in my detail could change a dang tire, but no, I'm on the side of the road telling them how to turn the lug nuts. That was my meeting Bernie as staff. Same guy you think he's going to be. Oh, damn it, I got dirt on my knees. That's Bernie. Okay. I know. I know. My heart, right? But I'm just saying, ain't none of them worth fangirling. And he would be the first one to tell you that. And he's not wrong. So anyway, I'm going to go and make sure that Isabel gets her time because I really do want to hear what she has to say. And I hope I have not scared her to death because I'd love to talk to you another time. Isabel.
Thank you, Melanie. All right, Isabel, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you. And did not scare me. Oh my gosh, I'm not that easily scared. You got me pumped up, and I'm definitely going to have to start to use roll up on my social media posts for sure. I hadn't heard that before this, so I'm excited. Well, hi everyone. My name's Isabel. Like I said before, I'm with Indivisible Arizona. Really quickly, since I know I recognize a couple of our really awesome Indivisible leaders and members here, would you give yourself a quick shout out in the chat if you're a member of an Indivisible group or if you're a leader of an Indivisible group? Because I know we have some of you on here as well. And does anyone know, would I be able to share my screen? It's totally fine if not. I know tech is sometimes funky.
If you need to share your screen, you have to go back out to the main lobby and then ask them to make you a co-host and come back.
Are you a co-host, Isabel?
I don't think so.
Okay. If you want to hop back out, they can make you a co-host.
All right, sounds good. I'll be right back super quick. And yay, love the indivisibles that are giving. I think you might be muted.
Yeah, you're good now. You are a co-host.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Totally good. All right. Well, I'll see you back in the room. I'm back. I hope everyone didn't miss me too much. All right, I'm going to share my screen super quick and then we'll get into it. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, I would do it in presenter mode, but my computer gets really angry every time I try to do it in presentation mode because I guess it looks nice and my computer doesn't like that. So we'll just have you guys see all my tabs in my toolbar, but I cleaned up my tabs before this just for you all. But like I said, I'm with Indivisible. Indivisible, we're a grassroots nationwide movement. We started right after the first 2016 election, the first time Trump was elected. Indivisible was actually started as a Google document titled The Indivisible Guide by some Democratic Hill staffers who wanted to share their wisdom on the strategies they think are best to engage their members of Congress. This was a document that they just planned on sharing around their group of friends, and it ended up actually going viral online and created the nationwide movement of Indivisible. And now that Google document is thousands of groups across the country. We have 30 groups just in Arizona alone, which is amazing, and a full team of staff across the country that are there to help support our groups do what they do best, which is raising hell, doing activism. Indivisible groups participate in what we like to call inside outside advocacy. So, on the outside, our groups are supporting progressive candidates running for office and supporting those campaigns and helping them campaign. They're knocking doors, doing phone calls, doing texts, like I'm sure so many of you all have done before. So, that's kind of outside advocacy, is that campaign side of things. We're especially involved in battleground states like Arizona and battleground districts. And then we also participate in inside advocacy. And that's more so teaching our groups and our activists how to leverage their power as constituents to lobby and move their members of Congress. So it's not necessarily the type of lobbying you traditionally think of with a lawyer and a suit and some kind of, back alley deals, but it's everyday average people using their powers as constituents to try to move their member of Congress. So that's a little bit about what Indivisible is. It sounds like a lot of you are really familiar with our movement and involved with our movement, which is awesome. I'll add that we work in collaboration to the Democratic Party. We're not in competition. So obviously, like legally, there are some things that groups and parties can't do together, but we're here to support progressive Democratic candidates and kind of fill the gaps that a party might not be able to as a group. And in Arizona, like I said before, we have 30 groups around the state, which is super cool. About 10 of those groups have actually popped up since the 2024 election, which I just think is so amazing and so inspiring because it really shows we've got this whole generation of activists that came out of the anger from the 2024 election. So I'm so excited to see them grow and organize in their communities. We've been really involved in the past few Arizona Senate races, like I'm sure many of you have. We've helped flip four winning races, especially with Gallego this past election, which is super cool. On the down ballot, we also really encourage our members and our leaders to take the plunge and run for office themselves, because I think there's no better person to run for office than a longtime activist. So we've actually elected 11 indivisible leaders in Arizona locally the past few years. Some of you might be familiar with Senator Annalise Ortiz or former Representative Judy Schwiebert or County Recorder Casares Kelly. They were all indivisible leaders in their communities who decided to take the plunge and run for office. And I'm so glad that they did, because all three of them are really amazing public servants. And then also pretty recently, like so many of you, we helped win abortion rights down ballot in Arizona. Indivisible groups collected 32,000 signatures for the Abortion Access Initiative petition on their own, which was a really huge win. So that's kind of how we've been invested in Arizona over the past couple of years. And then I have some pictures of our indivisibles from around the state because I just think they're the cutest and they're the best. So that's a bit about Indivisible, but I was asked today to speak about something that I think has been causing all of us a lot of anger, but not all of us, myself included, are really able to understand because it's so complicated. And that's the budget fight happening on the congressional level. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the negotiations going on, what reconciliation is and what it means for us, and then how we can leverage our power as constituents to mitigate as much harm as possible and call Republicans out for cutting vital social services. So, getting into a little primer on like what budget reconciliation is and what this means, because I know before working for Indivisible, I was not familiar with this process at all. And to be honest with you all, it still confuses me to this day, because it's intentionally complicated and intentionally there is jargon used for everyday people to not understand what's happening. So, we're just going to go over what this means before getting into the implications of what just passed through the House and the Senate last week. So when you hear the term budget reconciliation, that's kind of just a jargon way of saying the budget process in Congress. Each fiscal year, the Budget Committee creates their annual budget resolution, and then they can choose to include the process of reconciliation, which is just sort of a procedural process that means that the Senate cannot use the filibuster tool, and also that the bill will be passed through a simple majority. So that's what reconciliation means when we talk about budget reconciliation. It's just that procedure that unfortunately for us, it means that Republicans are going to have a bit easier time passing a budget reconciliation bill than they would another bill that needs a 2/3 majority and the Senate could use their filibuster. So once they draft their budget resolution, they send this to the committees. The budget resolution is different from reconciliation. The resolution is basically like the skeleton outline plan of what we're going to spend on what we're going to cut, what we're going to increase funding for. And then the reconciliation is the bill itself. So last week, the House and the Senate both passed separate budget resolutions, and they're sending those over to the committees. Now, the committees actually don't have to follow the suggestions given to them in the budget resolution, which is really interesting, but they are not allowed to exceed spending that's capped within the budget resolution. So if the Education or the Energy Committee wants to spend money differently than outlined in the resolution, they can. They just can't overspend on the limits, which is a little tricky when we're talking about the most recent budget resolution that aims to cut $2 trillion from our budget. So the committees will undergo a process of negotiation as they take this resolution, this kind of skeleton outline, and they put it into a real bill. We're anticipating that negotiations are going to take quite a bit of time this year, potentially even through April. So there's going to be a lot of time for us to flex our constituent muscles and advocate over this budget process. But once the committees actually return their text, the budget committee kind of compiles all these little bills into a big bill, and then they send it to the floor in each chamber for a vote. And this is a separate process in the House and in the Senate. And so that big compiled bill is what we call our reconciliation bill. And a reconciliation bill has to be compliant with what's called the Byrd Rule. And the Byrd Rule basically means that any portion of a reconciliation bill must directly impact federal funding. So that's a way to kind of prevent unrelated poison pills that may not really be related to federal funding, but include, different other agendas, right? So a reconciliation bill has to undergo what's called a bird bath, which is kind of funny, through the parliamentarian and through other members of Congress to make sure that all the provisions are in accordance with this rule. A little more on the timeline. So like I said, the budget resolution is the first step. That's where we're here. That's just the outline. The resolution goes to the committees, and the committees draft their actual plans surrounding this resolution and surrounding the guidelines given to them in the outline. They send it back to the budget committee. The budget committee puts all the different committee plans into one bill. They meet with the parliamentarian. They give it the little bird bath to make sure that all the provisions directly impact federal funding, and then they send it to each floor for a vote. Provisions that aren't in accordance with the Byrd Rule, they're going to be removed from the package. And then the full chamber in the House and the Senate votes on the bill, and it's passed by a simple majority, which the Republicans already have. So in order for us to reject a budget reconciliation bill, we would have to flip a couple Republicans, which seems pretty difficult at this point because we were only able to flip one Republican for the budget resolution. So, moving past that timeline and looking where we are in the context of the timeline, we have just passed the budget resolution, which is now being sent to the committees to create their own little reconciliation bills. So, last week, the Senate and the House passed their budget resolutions. I'm sure a lot of you probably saw that in the news. It was passed almost entirely on party lines. I think the only Republican that was moved was in the House. And I'd love to be like, yay, bipartisan king. But unfortunately, his reasoning for why he decided to vote against the resolution was because it didn't cut spending on social services enough. So, not necessarily the win we were hoping that would be. So committees are now going to be in the process over the next couple weeks of drafting their reconciliation bills, and the two chambers can combine it into one or two omnibus bills. For whatever reason, Trump, Musk, and Vance have decided the difference between one bill or two bill is like their new controversial thing. So when you hear Trump being like, we have to have one big, beautiful bill, that's what he's talking about. It doesn't necessarily make a huge difference, but they love to choose their little things that they're getting mad about. Another interesting part of the budget process, a government funding resolution is a separate entity from the budget resolution and budget reconciliation, but the chambers must pass a continuing resolution to keep funding the government before March 14th, because that's when our current resolution to fund the government expires. So this is going to be really important for Mike Johnson and other Republican leadership to make sure they're passing this continuing resolution, which they need a two-thirds vote for. So Democrats are going to be able to maybe leverage a little bit of power if they're going to commit to this continuing resolution. Maybe some changes will have to happen to the reconciliation bill, right? Because we don't want a government shutdown. Indivisible's not advocating for a government shutdown because that hurts everyday people. But it is in the hands of Republican leadership to make deals with Democrats to prevent a government shutdown from happening on their watch. So, moving towards the resolution itself that was just passed last week, I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of news about this. This resolution, frankly, is very scary. It promises to cut $2 trillion from the budget. But don't worry, it'll increase spending on immigration enforcement, especially in military intervention and immigration enforcement. So we can cut SNAP, we can cut Medicare, Medicaid, but we can increase spending on military use of power and immigration enforcement. So pretty much exactly what we would expect from a Trump agenda and from a Trump government. These cuts to the budget are really primarily going to hollow out Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, and other vital social programs. As we know, 72 million Americans rely on Medicaid, and over 36 million are at risk of losing their health care coverage as a result of this bill. So this is really scary, and we need to be getting up and saying that this is really scary. Republicans are cutting vital services that their constituents rely on, and we need to be calling them out and holding them accountable for this. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but also because when the 2026 midterms come up and we're kind of have a reckoning, we're going to have a reckoning against Trumpism, that pendulum might swing. Voters need to know that their representatives voted to take their health care away, to take their food stamps away. People deserve the right to have access to that information, and they need to be called out about it. So this is kind of where we come in as constituents and as concerned citizens. Congressional recess is coming up in a couple weeks. There's going to be ongoing budget negotiations likely during this recess and after this recess. Like I said, they're probably not going to vote on a budget bill until late March, early April-ish, because they're stalling as much as possible. So when the senators and the representatives are on their recess, they're supposed to be in their home turf doing constituent services, holding town halls. This is really similar to another moment we had back in 2017 when Republicans were trying everything they could to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Similar to this, they were trying to repeal the ACA through a reconciliation bill so that they only needed a simple majority. But because indivisibles and Democrats and activists across the country made them, hear their voices and made them reckon with this decision, we were able to prevent the Affordable Care Act from being repealed. People showed up to town halls and spoke out so much that Republicans were actually advised to stop holding town halls during their congressional recess during this period. So people showed up to airports and they showed up to their offices and grocery stores, and they respectfully harassed their member of Congress that was trying to strip healthcare away from millions. And their voices were so loud that we still have the Affordable Care Act today. So while it's going to be tough to stop these budget cuts, we can repeat that history and we can be even louder over this next congressional recess and over the next couple weeks and ensure that Republicans are paying for the decisions that they're making. So taking action is going to look a little bit different if you have a Democratic representative who voted against this resolution or a Republican representative who voted for it, right? But action is super important whether you're in a red district or a blue district alike. So I'm sure since we're in Arizona, most of us probably have a Republican representative. I know I do. Here's the action Indivisible is recommending constituents in red districts take. For one, we're asking you to call on your Republican member of Congress to host a public open town hall and face the constituents whose benefits they're eliminating. Make sure that they hear from people what's happening. Like Melanie kept saying, record these town halls, get them on tape saying that they voted to cut your health care coverage. And unfortunately, because Republican members of Congress are going to be Republican members of Congress, they might not attend. I know my representative, David Schweikert, probably wouldn't attend a town hall. Like Melanie said, host an empty chair town hall and turn their silence into a movement, turn their silence into something bigger than this, and make sure you're still calling them out and getting community together to talk about this scary bill. And on the off chance they choose to attend, make sure we're asking the hard questions, right? Even if it's just their staff member, you can still ask staff members the hard questions, even though they're not the ones that are doing the votes, right? How do you justify cutting meals for kids while cutting taxes for billionaires? And record their answers. 2026 is just around the corner. And in Arizona, especially, we have some Republicans who are pretty vulnerable in their seats, but they're not acting like they're vulnerable. For instance, this is a graphic that went viral from Vote Save America of the Republican members of Congress who voted in favor of this budget resolution that cut SNAP, who have a ton of SNAP recipients in their district that are going to be directly harmed by this. David Schweiker and Juan Ciscomani are two of them, right? They have 50 to 60,000 SNAP recipients in their districts, and they didn't win their districts by a very significant margin of victory, yet they still voted to revoke these benefits, these life-saving benefits from their constituents. So we need to call them out. We need to call them out as fast as possible and continue to call them out until 2026, because making a statement about this and getting loud about this could actually flip some seats and be the difference between a budget like this happening in the future. And then if you have a Democratic representative, I still highly encourage you to take action, even though I was very pleased to see that all Democrats voted against the budget resolution. I know Ruben Gallego is planning on hosting a teletown hall over the recess. I think everyone should join that. I'm not exactly sure what Mark Kelly is planning on doing. If anyone has any information on that, would love to hear it in the chat. But call on Democrats to still host public town halls because it's important that the community is educated on what's at stake. And even though they're not contributing to this budget bill by voting for it, they should still be in community and making sure their constituents feel heard. If you're in a blue district, you could also go attend an empty chair town hall in a red district and so show support for your fellow peers that are in those red districts. And when you're at town halls with Democrats, you should still ask them the hard questions, right? You should ask them questions that hold them accountable to continue fighting and keep fighting the good fight and use as much leverage as possible. So if I were going to sit in a town hall with Ruben Gallego, I might ask him, how are you using your leverage to protect programs that working families rely on? It's important that when Democrats make the right decision and they put up a fight, we thank them for it. And when they maybe take a step back and are a little quieter, we call them out and we hold them accountable to the people that voted them in. So, like I said, lots of indivisible groups are going to be hosting town halls over the congressional recess. I'm really excited to see it. This is the best way, I would say, to find an indivisible event near you, to go to our Mobilize page. This is going to be updated a lot more over the next 2 weeks. So if you don't see an event near you, I would keep checking. Indivisible also offers a general Mobilize page where you can register your own event with Indivisible, even if you're not a member of an Indivisible group. So if you consider yourself Indivisible curious, there's not a town hall in your area coming up, you can register one yourself, reach out to me, and we can help you set it up because everybody has a place in this movement, even if there's not a group or an event happening near you. We also have a national policy team that really keeps updates going on about the budget process and other federal calls to action. So I recommend everyone keep visiting this page, indivisible.org/coup, very on the nose of them. And that's where we kind of keep our federal calls to action updated surrounding the Trump Musk coup. Right now, that's where you can find our call script and other resources to call your representatives and your senators and urge them to vote against a budget that strips healthcare coverage from millions of Americans. And that's it for me. Thank you so much all for being here and for having me here. It was really great to be in community with everyone. I included my email in here. Feel free to write that down and save it and reach out to me after this call. Stop my share.
Thank you so much, Isabel. There is a question in the chat. Will we be able to have a copy of your slides? Can I include that in the follow-up email?
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Just so everyone knows, a recording of both of the breakout rooms, as well as all of the resources that were made available, will be sent to you this afternoon. Are there more questions for Isabel? I just want to say thank you for the rundown on the budget process. It is still confusing to me, but that was the most clear and concise description I've heard. So thank you. And Mike, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, I had a question for Isabel, especially the Gallegos and uh, potentially a Kelly town hall. I'm just so upset about their votes on Lake and Riley. Is this going to be appropriate place to bring it up? Or I know we
Yeah.
want a general positive vibe, but yeah, I'd like to hold them accountable. I've been mentioning it every text I send them for stuff that normally I wouldn't feel like I had to remind them how they should be voting, except
Mhm.
for
Yeah, call them out, hold them accountable. I'll be honest with everyone. I was also really upset and disappointed to see both of them vote for in favor of the Lake and Riley Act, and I do think they need to continue to answer for that. Not just because it was a bad decision, but they need to know that their constituents aren't going to support them making similar votes in the future. So definitely call them out on that. Yeah, for sure. I will warn, it might be a little bit difficult in a teletown hall. I think that's going to be pretty controlled by his office. But that's why it's never a bad idea to request a meeting on your own as a constituent or with a group of people.
Go ahead, Melanie.
I just also wanted to say that regarding like texting them back when you get their texts, I'm somebody that works for candidates and for electeds that will send those mass texts. And most of the time, they don't see them. They do not see your responses. Like the only time that the candidate is ever made aware of anything that comes back digitally is if there was like a death threat. And then half of those we ignore too, because there's a lot of them. When you work as a Democrat, you hear a lot of things like, I'm nobody where I live. I live in a little mobile home, 25 acres, way the heck away from town. And I've been followed home 40 miles. I mean, like it can get dangerous as a professional. So there's a lot of stuff that's reason like it might surprise Missa because a lot of what I worked with Arizona on was how to use digital communications, but that's different for us reaching out than it is for the public reaching in because they're also the easiest thing for an office like a representative's office to ignore and to send an autoresponder to.
Bobby, go ahead. What's your question?
It's a question in the chat. Where could we find a list of people who belong to Indivisible in our geographic area? How can we facilitate communications between organized Indivisible groups and organized Democratic clubs? Still, I understand that we aren't supposed to be coordinating and talking to each other legally about money, but how do we do that?
Yeah, there's still plenty of other ways we can coordinate together. So either you're welcome to email me and I'd be happy to connect you with a group leader near you. Or if you go to indivisible.org, I'll pull the link. We have a map of groups, and you can put in your zip code or your address or your congressional district, and it'll give you the information for a group near you. I'll also add on to Mike's question that he just had a second ago about, the Lake and Riley Act. I know a lot of you are from rural areas in Arizona. Most of you are not Maricopa like me. You should say that when you're calling them out, because one of the biggest reasons Gallego won is because he made huge leaps in rural Arizona, and he's going to need to maintain those votes and grow those votes if he gets re-election. So flex the fact that you're a rural Democrat, you're a rural progressive, and you voted for him because he needs you more than he needs the people in the big cities.
I love hearing that all of us rural Democrats need to be empowered. I want to give a shout out to Nancy Hartle, who's here, who ran in one of the toughest districts in Arizona against some crazy representatives, ran a great campaign, talked to folks all over remote and rural communities, and made a real difference and helped increase voter turnout in the district. And that power that she brings to rural Arizona is what's going to save us from this mess that we got ourselves into as a nation. So thank you, Nancy. All right, I'm looking for other questions. Any other questions here? And if I might just add, so Bobby, to your question about forming a stronger connection between local indivisible groups and your county parties, in 2016, started White Mountains Indivisible. The Indivisible that we have worked very closely side by side with the Democratic Party. And then all of our membership were informed on the actions of both groups. It made it a lot easier for us to build a bridge between the two. Bobby, if you are interested and able and capable of being the person who can help facilitate an indivisible group, or if a group of your friends can help facilitate that, Isabel and Trisha and the entire Indivisible team is here to help make it as easy as possible. White Mountains Indivisible is relaunching with exactly that purpose. I now serve as the chair of Navajo County Democrats, so I don't have the capacity to be the group leader anymore. We're passing the torch on so that there are new folks who can build that information bridge and help make sure that everyone in your community is doing the actions. And we have a local team member here in the White Mountains who just planned on his own a rally in front of the Summit Hospital in Show Low. It's a small hospital. If Medicaid and Medicare are cut, we may lose that hospital. And so we have one team member who decided he was going to do this, made a flyer, told his friends, and now we're anticipating seeing 50 people show up. So please know that when it comes to actions and moving the needle, it doesn't take a tremendous amount of knowledge and activism. It really just takes a good idea and making the right phone calls to the right people. We are all leaders here, and we're all capable of making really big impacts. And if you call your friends, we can all get it done together. I am looking in the chat. Any more questions? Oh, Mike, I see your suggestion, and I am so excited about that for all of you living in CD2, which is more than half of Arizona, and we couldn't even find a representative who could bother living in the district. Why don't y'all call Mr. Jonathan Nez again, and make sure that he knows that we want him to run again in CD2. Right now, he is the guy who can beat out Eli Crane. He's got the name recognition, he's got the support, and he's got the ideas that can help move this nation forward. So why don't y'all give him a call? All right, Janice, what's your question?
So today is our economic blackout day, and I think this is a wonderful way to spend our time instead of our money. March 15th is a non-compliance day. Is there any plans in the works for doing something on that day as well?
I will say that's the start of congressional recess. So I would encourage everyone, to use that time to hold your member of Congress accountable because they're supposed to be on their home turf. If they're not in their home turf during that time, call them out on social media for sure. But I don't know if anyone has any other suggestions as well.
We have another question, but I have something I want to add to that. But let's get to Miss Bobby. Miss Bobby, you are muted.
I wanted to ask this question early on. Has Indivisible or the Democratic Party made any organized contacts with the huge hospital organizations and or the federally qualified health centers so that we can all be working together, focus Medicaid? Like, could we have a demonstration with the federally qualified health centers at a congressman's office, like instead of just the Democrats and or the Indivisibles? Has anybody here made any structured, organized contacts with the people who are going to be most impacted by the Medicaid cuts?
Any organized efforts like in partnerships with hospitals or in partnership with hospital workers, is not on my radar yet. But I would encourage you, like if you have those connections or you're interested in seeing something like that, I would totally encourage you to get the ball rolling on that, reach out to your local group and, maybe partner on that together.
Well, we do have a locally, we do have a local federally qualified health center, but we also have Banner Hospital. So I'm not really in a position to contact Banner Hospital, but somebody at the Democratic in Arizona or the Arizona Indivisible could be making links with Banner Hospital, Phoenix Children's, all the people that are going to be cut. And if they are making, if they want to do demonstrations, could help them with their plans.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
think that's
I'm not in a position to call Banner Hospital and say I'm going to be standing down at the corner of First and Second in Casa Grande, because I don't even know. I don't think Eli Crane has the same office space, but or I'm sorry, Scamani has the same office space. But I am not as an individual in a position to call Banner Hospital and say, "What are you doing?" But I'm wondering if anybody has done it.
So I am not in a position necessarily to know the CEOs of any hospitals either. But what I do know is that when you are working with a handful of other people, you put yourself in that position. And you put yourself in the position to make that difference and be that leader. Our friend Eric, who is a community member, reached out to our independent hospital. So we are not part of one of those broader healthcare systems at Summit Healthcare. He called the CEO's office directly. The CEO responded the next day and said, you know what, if you all want to rally in support of the hospital, I can come speak on my lunch break and be there for you. You will be surprised at the connections that you can make with folks when we're all fighting together for the same thing. Every single one of us in this room is the power. And I want us all to take that home with us today. I had no intentions of being in the Arizona Democratic Party, serving on multiple boards and multiple levels. But it was necessitated by the fact that we are fighting for our future together. And I think that all of us can move the needle. So, Bobby, if you want hints and tips about what to do next, let's figure that out. I don't know how to get Banner Healthcare on board, but we can figure it out together.
Okay.
Yes. And Larry, I believe that is true. So, to the point about calling the Summit Healthcare CEO and him replying, he is, in fact, a Republican voter, but he knows that his hospital needs our help and will work. We're going to cross these lines together. Vicky, I love that. When people lead, leaders follow. All right, Springerville Medical Center. Let's go find them too, Mike. I'm down to help those folks out. In rural Arizona, from hospital to hospital, it can be over an hour and a half to get there. So we want to make sure we're working together. Craig, what's your question? Craig, you're muted if you're talking.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So all of these boards have, all of these hospitals have boards, and the members of the boards are usually community leaders of one kind or another, medical personnel, doctors, or whatever, but a mixture of the community anyway. I think they would be a good place to start because they are supposed to be the ones who are generating resources for the hospital and giving it direction. And I think if you find somebody who's sympathetic, and you'll find several of them who are sympathetic that would talk to you and maybe grease the skids for getting the organization on board.
Thanks, Craig. I appreciate these beginning steps. We can probably put together a little bit of resources about that too, find out more and move it forward. Really appreciate that. I am in the chat for the folks who are in room 2. We're gonna all reconvene in the main room in 8 minutes at 10:30. So what are some other questions that we have about moving things forward in Arizona? Nice. Janice, go ahead.
So one of my big questions is a lot of times we have bright ideas and then we don't get the people to start following through on them. How can we reach them? How can we motivate them? They say they want things done, but they don't want to do it sometimes.
This is the question that I love to get, Janice. Okay, so I don't know that there's a secret response or answer to it. The way that we have been able, oh, but first, what county are you in, Janice?
I am in Mojave County.
Ooh, I love it. And you have Diane who is moving the needle and changing and moving things forward. It's true. People all the time say that they want change. They say they want things to be better. And it's really hard to get folks to believe that they have the power to make the difference. So things like getting the ball rolling, it's a small thing. This meeting today, which has over 100 people in the 2 rooms, started because people started emailing the economic blackout to county leadership and saying, hey, did you hear about this? Did you hear about this? And we thought there's no better way to spend this morning than by being together and talking about how to change the system. So we asked if anybody wanted to come along and join us and learn. And we found out that over 100 people in Arizona did, right? And we can, from this one event, build a group of active activists and have more of these events and replicate them. So, Janice, the best way is to put one foot in front of the other yourself, and people will join you. And I see you in the chat, and I see that you are capable of getting people to respond to you. You are capable of cheering folks on. You are a force of positivity and good. And I can see that from a 5-minute, exchange in a chat. So I know that you can help find those folks, and you just have to reach out to them over and over and over again. That's kind of the second part of the secret. Deb.
Thank you. Bobby and myself who are in this room, and my husband, who's in the other, are parts of the Democrats of Casa Grande, and we're trying to revitalize our group, attracting younger people. Most of our group is if 60s, 70s, even 80s. We've changed our date and time, and I just was hoping that maybe you would have some suggestions for ways that we could reach out to younger people. Anybody.
Honestly, taking action and seeing people in action really, really does, especially visible actions like what we've suggested with Roll Up and some of the things that Indivisible is doing. That is what attracts young people. As somebody who used to work for Bernie, who is inarguably one of the older, more grumpy fellas, and nobody could figure out why the kids want it. And he's as grumpy as you think he's gonna be. Okay, trust me. He was genuine. and he put his money where his mouth was. You know what I mean? He was consistent. He showed up and he was willing to listen to people. And when young people show up, when you finally get some, the very first thing they're going to have is a whole ton of ideas, a lot of which you're going to hear and go, right? Like we've done that. That doesn't work. Like, like you got to find a way to both incorporate their ideas so they feel like they have investment and ownership and a stake in what we're doing, and also guide them at the same time. And sometimes when we're doing our activism and we're running around and we're busy and we try to roll up on our senators and whatnot, it's very easy to kind of drive them off with if we're not careful how we handle them. It's not a matter of necessarily just attracting them. Part of that can be increase your socials because you're more likely to get younger people. But also one thing, and I've had this conversation with Missa and the chairs before, is start thinking about what you're visualizing when you think of younger voters. Because a lot of us put in our head the 18 to 22-year-old people. And that is a group, but it's also invariably one of the flakier ages you're going to be at in your life, because at that point you don't know, your frontal cortex ain't even formed fully yet till you're about 26, 27, right? So your best volunteer at 18 who did everything for you in your Democratic Party office and straightened out all your data and everything, she's going to be a vegan Buddhist living in a van by choice in about 6 months. And there's nothing wrong with that. She's figuring out who she is. Okay. But she may have lost all interest in this by then. And so when we bank our young votes just on this particular narrow group of people, that is a mistake, because there's a slightly older, also young group of voters that we do not make any room for that I think we should. And it's young parents.
Yes, that's
We
when I
do
say
not
younger,
think about them.
we are in our 60s, 70s, and 80s. So younger is anything under.
Right. But I'm just saying, a lot of people, when they visualize, a younger voter, they're thinking college age or just out of high school or something. And it would be ideal if we could get them. But a lot of them are kind of busy trying to figure out how to be grown adult human beings at that point. And they're going to bounce around like rubber balls. They're supposed to. Right. And so, maybe they're not the best for sustained action or for building coalition with. By the time somebody's got a 1 or 2 or 3-year-old, maybe if they've never watched the news before, they're doing it now. Because as soon as you have a baby, all of a sudden you go, oh, crap, I'm the adult. What's that supposed to look like? And we as Democrats almost never swoop in to try to pick up those people. Republicans do. They invite them to church. They provide childcare. They actually say, hey, you're a really great mom. When has anyone ever stopped you and said, hey, you're a really great mom? It works. That's why they're doing it. And that is consistently somewhere between 25 and 45 is consistently the demographic, especially among white folks, that usually end up voting against their own interest. Right. So start thinking about young parents as part of your young voters. If you can make events that are more child friendly,
Right.
where people don't feel like they got to find child care, if they can bring their kids, they'll be in good shape, but just don't aim for youngest of the young, because it's just almost impossible to decide what's cool this week anyway, because they're changing their minds up. It's just really, really hard thing to aim for. So think more of your young new parents crowd, and you'll find a plethora of people that are probably dying for a social outlet where they talk to adults too.
Amazing. Okay, we have time for one more question and then we got to get back to the main room. Craig, go ahead. You're muted, sir.
Sorry, Miss. My wife just came in here and told me to put myself on mute, and so I did. I'm just, I'm just, I'm just obeying my wife. So, at any rate, I feel like we're all a bunch of chickens with our heads cut off right now, running in so many different directions. And we have the resistance, we have Ukraine, we have this, we have that. We have so much going on, which is what Trump wants to be happening. But I'm wondering if there's a point in the future where we might expect there to be some kind of cohesive strategy or cohesive target or some kind of more kind of organized or maybe even formal, quote unquote, um, uh, uh, formulation of our goals. In other words, are we going to focus on the the funding issue? You know, are we going to focus on any one of these issues? It seems like every time that something pops, it's like whack-a-mole, of course, you know, when something pops up, then everyone runs over to knock it down, but right behind you, another one's popping up. And I'm just wondering if there's ever going to be a response to this kind of thing that the Republicans are throwing at us, where we can kind of more cohere. We can bring our energies into a more coherent form. I mean, am I making myself clear? Nissa, you look puzzled.
Um, I believe that as all of us enter this space, we all have issues that are most important to us, which is why we were asked to put in the chat what we are fighting for. And all of those threads in the tapestry of injustice need to be pulled on. There are those of us right now who are fighting for folks who are undocumented, making the argument very clearly that these folks are our neighbors and friends and belong here. There are folks who will be showing up at every national park tomorrow in the country because we need to protect our lands, our public lands. There are folks showing up for the community because every member of that community belongs here and they are loved and cared for. And there are those of us fighting on the budget. And every one of those threads needs to be pulled on every single day. And those threads will unravel all of the injustices. And it may feel hectic and chaotic. And it may feel like maybe if we all put our voices in one basket, they would be stronger. But we know they're hearing us. And what we do know too is if you are fighting for what you hold most dear to you, you'll have the energy to get up and do it again and again and again, even when the days are tough, even when you feel like you don't want to do it. If you care more deeply about what you're doing than anything else in the world, you're going to do it. And that is what we need. We need everyone to get up and fight for what they care about every single day. And you pull your thread and I'm going to pull mine, and we will undo this rug, and we will make sure that this world is more just, and we will improve upon what we had just a year ago. and, and with that, fam, I think we're all supposed to go back to room one. We're gonna have a quick debrief. Are there any closing thoughts? Isabel, I am so sorry. You put something in the chat that I think is so important about youth interns. So do you want to just mention that quickly?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely loved what Melanie said about providing childcare and providing food at your meetings. That's a great way to capture young parents and young people. But also, if your organization has the funding, I couldn't recommend hiring either a high school or a college or just a younger intern or fellow. That's how I got involved in politics, was I got hired as an intern when I was a freshman in high school, for a legislative campaign in my district, and like that kept me in politics. And like a young person has so much to learn from you, and you have so much to learn from a young person. So if you have the means to like, I always recommend doing it paid, because I think that captures more people and it makes it a more accessible opportunity. But even if you're not able to do a paid internship, I was able to do unpaid internships when I was in high school. You can still make it, really worth their while. I know the people that hired me, they wrote my letters of recommendation for college and things like that, and like supported me, and I still go to them for help with things. So I definitely recommend like creating that opportunity, and then you have a young person to learn from, and you're building building someone up in your community. And yeah, Vicky said CEBV, Civic Engagement Beyond Voting. We have a youth fellowship. We actually just selected, we hired 10 youth fellows around the state for our spring cohort. We're going to be hiring again in the summer. So if you know anyone in your area, please let me know. But I'm really excited. We have fellows in Mojave County, Coconino County, Yavapai County, all around the state. So really excited for that. And I would definitely, consider with your group or organization, maybe doing something similar.
Great. We are about to be bounced back to the main room. See y'all in a second.
Thank you.
It is just really great when people can. So, wow, look at all of these people here on this call. This is wonderful. I know when we get into breakout rooms, I mean, they were big too, right? But to then have everybody come together, I mean, this is just really soul lifting here. So that's wonderful.
And Jennifer, if you could close the rooms, that would be amazing.
Yep, they're all closed. It'll take about 60 seconds to return everybody back to this room. So give us, let's say by 10:40, we should be ready to move forward with our debrief and end of session.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. Really great session in room one. I feel like I learned a lot, even though I've been engaged in this space for a long time. It feels really wonderful to be surrounded by such caring, such passionate, so many knowledgeable and savvy activists. Thank you all so much. Diane or Jennifer, I am happy to mute myself and let y'all take over for the debrief if you'd like.
Is Jennifer in here?
I am. I nominate Diane to do it because I'm still sounding a little froggy over
Nominated
here.
you.
No.
Oh, well, I can start out, but this is really a collaborative thing, right? So I will have to tell you, I don't know if you all know who all the county chairs are on here. So one of the things we've been talking about is collaboration communications, right? And we were all in these silos. And I said, oh my gosh, we can't do that right now. We need to work together. And so we came together on these statewide communications, and this came out of that. And so I just want to encourage everybody, share with us today that now is a good time to do that. The debriefing is important, right? But every action, there's a reaction. And, I keep saying I might only have one match, but I can cause an explosion. I love that song. And I think that's every one of us. And it's really easy to get discouraged. And it's really easy to turn and say, what are the Dems doing, right? But we, all of us, every one of you, every one of us, we are the Dems. So I would just like to open this up and see who would like to share what your takeaway is. So I teach at the college. I teach political science and accounting. And one of the things for us is if we don't have something to take away and do in the next 48 hours, we're not likely to follow up with that later, right? Because there's so much bombarding us. So I would like to open this up. You can raise your hand, use your hand raise function, and share with us your takeaway. And do you know who your county chair is if you are here in Arizona?
Well, and while we have people raising their hands, I want to take a few minutes and shout out to some of our county chairs on the call. So first of all, big shout out and hand claps to Miss Afoy from Navajo County. She is absolutely amazing, and she was kind of the match that started this explosion, this fire that we have here today. We have Connie on from Gila County, which love you. I was in Globe yesterday in case you missed all my messages, and I love Globe. We have Xanth Bullard on from Yuma County. My name is Jennifer Hillsbass. I'm the chair of Pinell County. Who am I missing? We've got, of course, Diane from Mojave County. And I feel like I'm missing at least one county chair.
Laura.
Laura, That's because
All right.
Laura's on vacation.
Also, Kathleen Sauer
Yeah,
from
so
Yavapai.
we have Kathleen from Yavapai, who big props to her because her and her group have some fun stuff coming up in this next week, including for those of you that live in Congressional District 2, Eli Crane is going to be moving around doing constituent office hours, and a lot of us are planning things around that. And yeah, Laura is on vacation in Hawaii, so big aloha to her, and thank you for joining us because I hope you know it's early there. So now we have some hands raised. So I'm going to call on Larry
Hold
first.
on a second. I didn't raise my hand. I'm sorry, but you were talking about Eli Crane's going around. Are you sure if it's the one that's going around right now, it is only someone that is representing him? He's gone to Pine Top and Sholo already, but the it's only a representative of him. It is not him.
He is not
Yes,
holding in-person town halls or office hours. He's afraid to face us.
yes, he's afraid, which is good.
Literally.
I'm glad that he's afraid to face us. He should be afraid to face us. And yes, we are meeting, but still go in and talk to his constituent services. I have a whole pile of stories of people who are being impacted by the actions he's taking in Congress right now that I've been collecting from my county, the part of his district that's in Pinnell, and I'm going to slap those down on the desk for his person. But so Larry, you
It's literally what I did. You literally did what I did like 3 days ago. You're fucking awesome.
excellent. I love it. All right, so let's get Larry on now. Larry Romo.
Yeah. You said raise your hands if we knew who our chair was, and of course mine is Missa. Uh, and okay, I uh, I just wanted to say I met with my county chair on Tuesday, or my representative on Tuesday. So, and my phone is ringing. Uh, and okay. And she seemed astonished that that I was concerned about cuts to Medicare and the VA, and she assured me that that Crane would be having town halls in the very near future. So uh, anyway, that's all that I had to say. So that's all.
For Crane, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. He's not coming.
So Jody, I think you're up next.
Yes, I also met with Eli Crane's staff in Pine Top shortly after Larry did. And what I wanted to warn you about is his representative, Lori, just filled the time with a lot of fluff. She kind of dominated our time with her.
Sorry, I'm trying to get this back in. Oh, crap.
Jody, I think we're going to see them trying to fill the space because they don't want to hear what we have to say. But we have to keep saying it, and we cannot allow them to think that they're safe in red communities like Shiloh. We can't let them think that they're safe in red communities like Vernon or Concho, wherever that staff member shows up. We need to be there, and we need to make sure that they understand that rural Arizonans are harmed by their policy. So thank you for talking to Craig staffer. It's appreciated.
Can I ask then, how would we deal with that in the future? Like, would we just interrupt her and say, hey, we have some things we want to bring up?
I was actually just going to follow up Missa to Missa and say, and we need to go in there and say, look, I can get all that information off of his website. Are you interested in hearing from your constituents or not? And I'm not usually a fan of yes or no questions, but in this case, I feel like that needs a yes or no question. And then I am not one to shut up when they say no, we're not. I'm one to just keep talking, and I will talk over her. If you're not going to give me the respect to listen to me when I have taken the time out of my day to be at those office hours, I have other things I could be doing. I have to drive up to Gold Canyon, which is about a 40-minute drive for me. I don't live in his district, but I represent a significant portion of his district here in Pinal County. And I'm going to go up there and I'm not going to listen. I have no interest in listening. I can listen to his sound bites anywhere. I'm there to tell my story and to tell the story of my constituents.
Perfect. Mike, what's your question?
Oh, well, we didn't mention Lauren Marshall, Apache County Chair. I believe she had to go someplace. She's not still here, but she's doing a great job. She's new here. And also, kind of to everybody about the Elon Crane pseudo town halls. Uh, I missed the notification. He didn't even send it out until the day before the meeting. So stay on top of your emails if you have planned to attend these. Because yeah, I would have loved to gone and gotten his representative's face. That's
Mike,
it.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to forget Lauren. I'm sorry. Nancy Hartle, one of my
I
favorite
was just,
people.
oh,
By the way,
hi.
Nancy took it upon herself to run in a very red, challenging district. So also let's be clapping hands for Nancy. So I'm glad to see her here today.
Thank you, you guys. I appreciate that. Yeah. I tell people, hey, no regrets. I was very, very thrilled to meet everybody and run all over the state and everything. And I felt like I did my best. So I felt like I was up for the challenge. It was just a really terrible time in a really tough district too. But I just wanted to say that it is the modus operandi of the GOP to talk circles over you, and to mow you over. I mean, Trump does it. They all do it all the time. And I just want to reiterate, we have to go there with some really sound ideas and then just keep talking and try to mow them over, I think is what we have to do. So I just wanted to throw that in. Thanks, you guys. And thanks again, Missa, for your kind words earlier. Bring tears to my eyes.
Thank you. Gina has her hand raised, and I am so excited for you all to hear what she's going to share with us.
Were you in the breakout room I was in? Okay, okay. I didn't want
He
to spring
knows
this
you're
on
my
you.
friend, so
Okay. Okay, so I have a nice little packet here, couple of little balls in a nice little bag, and I wrote a poem to go with it. It says, while roaming congressional halls, we saw people were lacking some balls. Elon took them with Doge, will help replace those, so maybe you can hold some town halls.
Now,
So,
I got to share something here about Miss Gina real quick. Okay. Gina and I knew each other through Bernie circles, but we didn't get to be real good friends till this. Gina had forgive me, Miss, I apologize in advance. Gina had some real chicken shit legislators to deal with up there. And there's a reason I'm saying chicken shit. I promise it's going somewhere. But there was literally chicken shit that was weighing down, and they weren't wanting to handle business properly applying. Well, Gina, I'll let you go ahead on that.
so they were trying to put a confined, like a chicken operation with all of the chickens with like very close to Lincoln. And so they're one of their things was that they said that the chicken poop didn't stink. So I asked a backyard farmer for some chicken poop, and they were like, "For what?" And I was like, "Legal purposes." And I took a ice cream bucket with chicken poop in it to a county commission meeting and um, carried it around with me for 8 hours while people testified. And my 2-year-old at the time.
He brought
And
chicken shit to the chicken shits, and I said, "You're my new best friend."
they were like, what do you have in the bucket? And I was like, well, I brought chicken poop. Because it does stink. It always stinks. And this is from outside chickens, not indoor chickens. And I was like, do you want to smell it? And they were like, no.
Now, me personally,
So
I know a lot of the chairs that used to be here. I know Missa, I don't know some of y'all so well, but I did a free program that I worked out with everybody here as far as helping them with their social media messaging. This is your sister state, ladies. This is Nebraska, who y'all had Operation Blue Phoenix. They had Operation Grow the Good Life over there. And we've all been kind of operating on the same thing. But this is the woman that pulled me into Nebraska politics because she brought chicken shits to the chicken shits. And I was so impressed. And I, hands down, then we just kind of figured out, oh crap, we're like the same kind of ADHD crazy little person. And we both there somehow we still have jobs working for Democrats. Just ride this pony till it dies. But honestly, I wanted to share something real quick here. There's a lot of people worried about, well, what's the appropriate way to do things? Listen, we have done the appropriate way to death. The one thing that we have is we're all worried about backing up our facts and stuff. And this is a party-wide problem wherein we have reports and we have a 28-page document explaining exactly why we're right, and nobody's reading all that. And so the GOP just talks in little things and tries to bully people around, as Nancy, I'm sure, is quite aware. Haven't girl, if you ever want to run again, let's talk, okay? But dang. But no, the main thing is that you don't owe people who are trying to make your life miserable and destroy your country a whole bunch of yes ma'am and no ma'am. And I'm somebody that I asked my daughter when she met my trans candidate for the first time. I said, what are our appropriate pronouns for meeting Miss D? And my kid said, she, hers, and ma'am, because that's how Southern she is. Okay, like I knew I had done something right at that point. She, hers, and ma'am. But the point is, one time I went to a group of Democrats in Lawrence County, which is an extremely red district, and I asked them, what resonates in the Democratic Party to you? Why are you part of the Democratic Party? And I said, whatever your top issue is, and somebody would say reproductive access or judicial reform or whatever environment. And I said, yeah, these all sound like really good reasons. So why is every dang one of you putting your head on the floor like you got something to be sorry about? You're trying to legislate with humanity in mind. So you're on the right side of history. And so we're about to have to take a fight to these people. But I think we're more than fired to fuck up. I know I am. And I've been, doing this stuff trying to beat this state purple. If that's what it takes. So my daughter will have something acceptable to vote in 3 years.
Thank you,
But y'all
Melanie.
got this.
And we got this. In Arizona, we are close. Marilyn, I see you with your hand up. What's up? You're still muted.
Mute. Okay. I heard Mike Johnson just yesterday say that the Speaker of the House or whatever, that that the people who are coming to these Republican town halls are really paid Democrats. I don't know if you heard him actually say that. But then I heard somebody say a very, I thought, astute comment or suggestion, and I don't know the mechanics, but they said now's the time that Democrats should hold town halls in Republican areas. I don't know if that's how that's done, but it sounded brilliant to me, but I'm not up
Bernie
on that.
Sanders is actually doing like a 28 city tour just to do that.
Yeah, I know. Is he going into Republican areas then? I mean, big time? Because I think that's brilliant. Right now, there are people all over that are upset and understanding the reality of who they voted for. So let's welcome them in. Let's go do town halls where they are thick and ready to be accepted and welcomed, and realize, hey, maybe I don't have to say I was wrong, but I was lied to. That's all.
That's exactly what Bernie is doing, is going into red areas, red states, and holding these.
Good.
So I have sort of been doing that in Pinnell, and the phrase that I say is there's nothing wrong with being lied to.
Yeah.
Like you're not wrong. You weren't wrong, you were lied to, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no reason to be ashamed except for the person that lied to you. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We've got about 4 minutes left till the top of the hour. Are there any other questions? Lauren, what's up, Lauren?
No question. I just want to say, hi everyone. My name is Lauren. I'm the Apache County Chair. Paulette gave an amazing presentation in breakout room 2, and it sounds like room 1 was great too. So shout out to all the county chairs and presenters. You all did an amazing job. I just also want to thank you all for being part of this activism teaching. Um, your participation is a testament to your commitment to making a difference. And it's really heartwarming to see so many passionate individuals come together. And I think, in times like this, it can often feel isolating. But this gathering kind of reminds us that we're part of a larger community that shares, our values. And so and it's also, perfectly normal to feel overwhelmed and exhausted by, the challenges that we're facing, especially like right now. And also, activism can be demanding, both emotionally and physically. So, it's important to remember that even small actions can lead to significant change. And I just want to remind everyone that you all possess unique skills, perspectives, and strengths that can, contribute to the collective effort. And so Diane also mentioned at the end of our last breakout room, it's important, self-care. Self-care is important. And so remember to take breaks, recharge, lean in on each other for support. And remember, it's okay to step back when you need to. I heard someone say once that a movement is a marathon and not a sprint. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
I would love to just add on to that a little bit because I do believe that it's a marathon, not a sprint, but also I heard last week it is a relay. And this needs to be a relay. We each do our part and we hand it to the next person who can take that while we recharge and reset. So, that is going to be required here as well. So, Missa, back to you.
Well, thank you so much. I am going to make sure that I include in the follow-up document you all receive a link to a Google form. It's a very short form, only a handful of questions. We want to make this space helpful and useful to all of us. We want to expand on it, and we want to make sure that we all have the resources we need and the support and care from each other we need to be successful in the state of Arizona. All of us are the leaders that the state needs to make sure that we hold the top 3 seats in Arizona and that we build upon those legislative wins and build our leadership at the state level in 2026. So I want to thank you all. Look for that email in your inbox by end of the day today. Thank you so much to all the presenters. Thank you so much for all of your questions and thoughtful discussion. We look forward to seeing you all again, and I hope that you have a lovely weekend and you enjoy a day without shopping today. Got a lot of good books to catch up on. Take care, everyone.